Namaskar, students. I hope you are all safe and healthy. Today, we will be discussing the first short story that we have in our syllabus, General English. The code of the paper is GE-1051, General English 1051. A textbook that we have in our syllabus is Golden Leaves. Out of the 3 short stories that we have in our syllabus, today we will be discussing the first short story, A Day's Wait, which is written by a very famous American novelist and a short story writer, Ernest Hemingway. The short story was published in 1933. The short story talks about the relationship between a father and a son. And it also focuses on innocence of a child. With that, let us begin the short story. He came into the room to shut the windows while we were still in bed, and I saw he looked ill. Now he came into the room. The narrator of the short story is the father of the child. And we will observe everything that goes on in the short story through the perspective of the narrator. And here the narrator is the father. So he came into the room to shut the windows while we were still in bed, and I saw he looked ill. The father observed that his son, when he came into the room to close the windows, and he looked ill. He was not comfortable. He was sick. He was shivering. He was trembling. Often when we have fever, fever is often accompanied by trembling. So he was shivering. His face was white, meaning pale. And he walked slowly as though it ached to move. The son of the father, he was feeling sick. His face was white and he was also not able to walk easily. What is the matter? Shads. Now, this is the name of the boy, Shads. So the father is asking his son, what is the matter, Shads? I have got a headache. What does the boy say? He replies that he has got a headache. You better go back to bed. So the father then requests the son that you go to bed, you take care, you sleep for some time, you rest. No, I am all right. So the son says that he is all right and he does not want to go to bed. You go to bed. I will see you when I'm dressed. So the father says that, no son, you go to bed and I will see you when I am dressed. You wait for me. In the meantime, you take a rest in your bed, and I will change my dress and I will see you there. I'll come there. But when the boy, apologies, but when I came downstairs, he was dressed, sitting by the fire, looking a very sick and miserable boy of 9 years. Students, please remember the years of the boy. He is 9 years old. So when the father came down and he expected that his son would be resting in his bed, but instead he was sitting, and he was sitting by the fire because it is very chilly outside. It is very cold outside. And so, the boy, he was sitting by the fire and he was looking very sick. When I put my hand on his forehead, I knew he had fever. So the father of the boy, he tried to check his temperature by keeping his hand on his forehead. And the father realized that Shad's, his son, was suffering from fever. You go up to bed, I said. You are sick. I'm all right, he said. When the doctor came, he took the boy's temperature. When we are sick, when we are suffering from fever, the doctor checks our temperature. Here also, when the boy was suffering from fever, the doctor came, he visited the house, and he took the boy's temperature. What is it? 102. Please remember the temperature. It is 102. So that is what the doctor has replied. What is the temperature of Shad's? It is 102. Downstairs, the doctor left 3 different medicines in 3 different colored capsules with instructions for giving them. So the doctor, he left medicines, and there were 3 different colored capsules that he left. One capsule was to bring down the fever. The other capsule was a purgative. Purgative meaning whenever there is a digestion problem. So whenever there is a digestion problem, doctor always gives a purgative. So it helps in digestion. Such medicines, purgative medicines, help in overcoming digestion problems. So one capsule was to bring down the fever, other capsule was a purgative, and the third to overcome an acid condition. Sometimes, we feel that, there is acid in our stomach, and we feel uncomfortable because of that. So doctor gave medicines, 3 different medicines. The doctor also said the germs of influenza can only exist in an acid condition. He said that influenza, flu, which is a disease, and the doctor said that influenza can only exist in an acid condition. Whenever a person is suffering from acid, there are chances that the virus of influenza can survive, can exist in that acidic condition. So that was what the doctor said. He seemed to know all about influenza and said there was nothing to worry about if the fever did not go above 104 degrees. What did the doctor say? There is nothing to worry about if the temperature stays below 104 degrees, 104 degrees. This was a light epidemic of flu, and there was no danger if you avoided pneumonia. Pneumonia is a little severe condition in which throat, nose, and sometimes even lungs are affected. So pneumonia is severe than flu, and the doctor suggested that it's better that the temperature stays lower than 104 degrees. Back in the room, I wrote the boy's temperature. I wrote the boy's temperature down and made a note of the time to give the various capsules. So the father, he made a note of the time that the capsules, one for fever, another for purgative, and the third for acid condition. When are each capsules supposed to be given to Shads, his son? Do you want me to read to you? Now, because Shads were resting, he was resting on his bed. So the father asked the boy that, should I read you something? Young boys, young boys and girls, young children, they always like to read stories. That is why the father is asking him that, do you want me to read read to you, and read some stories for his son? All right, if you want to, said the boy. So what did Shadza say? If you want to read, you can read. His face was very white, and there were dark areas under his eyes. It usually happens when we fall sick, we fall ill. These are the physical conditions that happen to us. He lay still in bed and seemed very detached from what was going on. So he was very still. He was not moving, and he seemed very detached. Detached meaning not taking interest. So the boy was not taking interest in the story that his father was reading, and he seemed very detached. I read aloud from Howard Pyle's Book of Pirates. Now, Book of Pirates, that is the name of the short stories, and it is written by Howard Pyle. Now, this was the book from which the father was reading the short stories for his son. But I could see he was not following what I was reading. But Shads was detached, and he was not taking interest in the story that his father was reading. How do you feel, Shads? I asked him. So how are you feel? How are you feeling? Is there any improvement? Do you feel better? Just the same so far, he said. So Shad said that No, father, I do not feel any improvement. The condition is the same as it was earlier. I sat at the foot of the bed and read to myself while I waited for it to be time to give another capsule. It would have been natural for him to go to sleep, but when I looked up, he was looking at the foot of the bed, looking very strangely. The father of the boy, the father of Shads. Now, usually, whenever he read stories for his son would soon fall asleep, would soon go to sleep. But today, he did not go to sleep. In fact, he was looking very strangely at the foot of the bed. Foot of the bed, because he is lying on his bed. And so naturally, he's looking at the foot of the bed. Why don't you try to go to sleep? I will wake you up for the medicine. So Shad's father said, go to sleep, take some rest, and I will wake you when it is time to give you the medicine. I would rather stay awake. Shad says that he does not want to go to sleep. After a while, he said to me, you don't have to stay here with me, Papa, if it bothers you. Papa, if it bothers you, you do not have to stay with me. Bothers meaning if you are not comfortable. If you do not feel okay, if you do not feel good, if you do not feel comfortable, you do not have to stay with me, Papa. So what did father say? It does not bother me. Naturally, why would any parent feel bothered to stay with their child? No, I mean, you do not have to stay if it is going to bother you. So then Shad is again saying that, Father, if anytime you feel uncomfortable, you can leave. I thought perhaps he was a little light-headed. So the father thought that maybe Shad needs some rest, maybe Shad needs some time alone. And after giving him the prescribed capsule at 11 o'clock, I went out for a while. So what did the father do? He felt that probably Shads wants to stay alone. So he left him and he went out. Father went out for a while. It was a bright, cold day. It was a bright but cold day. The ground covered with a sleet that had frozen, so that it seemed as if all the bare trees, the bushes, the cut brush, and all the grass and the bare ground had been varnished with ice. Varnished. It was a cold day. So the ground and everything on the ground was covered with ice. It was frozen with ice. I took the young Irish setter for a little walk. Now, who is this young Irish setter? The young Irish setter is a type of a dog. So I took the young Irish setter for a little walk up the road and along a frozen creek. But it was difficult to stand or walk on the glassy surface, and the red dog slipped and slithered and fell twice hard, once dropping my gun and having it slide over the ice. Now the dog was finding it difficult to walk on ice, And even the gun was also dropping from the shoulder of the father. So they have gone for hunting. They've gone for hunting. We flushed a covey of quail. Covey means group. Quail is a type of a bird. Quail is a type of a bird. So under a high clay bank with overhanging brush and killed two as they went out of sight over the top of the bank. So uh, the father with his gun, he killed two of the quails, small birds, with his gun. Some of the covey lit the trees, but most of them scattered into brush piles, and it was necessary to jump on the ice-coated mounds of brush several times before they could flush. So this group of birds, covey, they are going everywhere. And so the father and also the dog is also helping the father to hunt the birds. Coming out while you were poised unsteadily on the ice, springy brush, they made difficult shooting and killed two, missed five, and started back pleased to have found a covey close to the house and happy there were so many left to find on another day. So the father, after killing two quails, two birds, and he missed killing five birds. And then he was happy to have killed two birds and also happy to have found a group of birds nearby to his house, so that whenever he felt to go for hunting, he would have been able to kill some birds. At the house, they said the boy had refused to let anyone come into the room. Shards, see, when the father returned after hunting, after some time, the boy, he did not allow anyone to come into the room. You can't come in. He said, you must not get what I have. So he did not allow anyone to come, and he said that you must not get what I have. Flu is an infectious disease. It is an infectious disease, meaning that it can spread very easily. So if someone comes into contact with anyone who has influenza, flu, he can easily contract the disease. So Shards did not allow anyone to enter his room. I went up and found him in exactly the same position I had left him, white-faced, but with the top of his cheeks flushed by the fever, staring still as he had stared at the foot of the bed. So Shards is in the same condition. He's still white-faced, still suffering from fever, and still resting, and he's very sick. I took his temperature. So then father checked the temperature of the son. Something like 100, I said. So Shards asked his father, what is the temperature, father? So it's something like 100, somewhere around 100. It was 102 and 4/10. So it was slightly more than 102 degrees, slightly more, 102 and 4/10. It was 102, he said. Who said so? So Shards, he said that father, it was 102. So father is asking, who said that it was 102? The doctor. Your temperature is all right, I said. It is nothing to worry about. Do not worry about your temperature. It is all right. That is what father tried to convince Shaz. I do not worry, he said, but I cannot keep from thinking. Father, I'm not worrying, but I just keep having thoughts. I'm not able to stop my thoughts. Do not think, I said, just to take it easy. Do not think them. Take it easy. Do not try to think, do not try to think more. Just try to relax. Please take a rest. That is what father says. I'm taking it easy, he said, and looked straight ahead. When the father suggested him to take it easy, Shad said that he is taking it easy. I'm taking it easy. And he looked straight ahead. He was evidently holding on to himself about something. So he had some thoughts in his mind. Take this with water. So the father is offering one of the capsule to Shads, and he said that drink some water and take this medicine. Do you think it will do any good? Shads is asking, Father, will it make my condition better? Of course it will. Father says, yes. I sat down and opened the pirate book and commenced to read. But I could see he was not following, so I stopped. So father again started reading the storybook, the pirate book. And the father, he saw that Shads was not following. Pirate book. Pirates meaning the sea thieves. A very famous movie series is also there based on pirates. So this was the book that his father was reading for Shaz, but Shaz unfortunately was not following. His mind was into something else. About what time do you think I am going to die? He asked. Shaz asked his father, what time I'm going to die? What? About how long will it be before I die? How long will it be before I die? This is what Shahz is asking to his father. You are not going to die. What is the matter with you? You are not going to die. Who told you that you are going to die? Oh, yes, I am. I heard him say 102. People do not die with a fever of 102. That's a silly way to talk. So the father said that, Shads, no one dies with a fever of 102. Why are you thinking about it? It's a silly way to talk. I know they do. What did Shad say? Yes, father, I know that people die at 102. At school in France, the boys told me you cannot live with 44 degrees. I have got 102. So when Shads was in France and he was in the school in France, and at that time, the classmates, his friends in school, they were discussing that people cannot live with 44 degrees. I have got 102. He had been waiting all day, ever since 9 o'clock in the morning. So, Father, this is the title of our short story, A Day's Wait, meaning waiting for the whole day. So, what was Shad's waiting for the whole day? He was waiting to die the whole day, ever since 9 o'clock in the morning. You poor Shads, I said, poor old Shads. It is like miles and kilometers. There is a difference. What you heard, 44 degrees and 102 degrees, there is a difference. You are not going to die. That is a different thermometer. A thermometer is a medical instrument to measure the temperature. We are all aware about a thermometer and thermal reading right now. So the father tries to convince him, explains it to him that Shads, that is a different thermometer. On that thermometer, 37 is normal. There are two types of thermometer, Celsius and Fahrenheit. So Shad's father says that it's a different thermometer that you are talking about. In a Celsius thermometer, 37 is the normal temperature. And on this kind, it is 98. So when the doctor came to check the temperature of Shad's, he was using the Fahrenheit temperature. Let me see if I'm able to type the spelling of Fahrenheit and Celsius. In case if it's not, let me type it here. Okay, so I'm able to type it here. So there are two kinds of thermometers, Celsius and Fahrenheit. Wait. So there are two different kinds of thermometers. And Shad's, when his friends told him in France, in the school in France, that people die at 44. And he heard the doctor say that his temperature was 102. Now the father, he realizes that why did Shad's earlier tell him that when is he going to die? So the father says that on that thermometer, in Celsius thermometer, 37 is normal. On Fahrenheit, 98 is normal. Are you sure? That is what Shahz asked his father. Absolutely, I said. It is like miles and kilometers. Students, just like we have different units to measure the distance, we have miles, we have kilometers. You know, like how many kilometers we make when we do 70 in the car. So these are different units to measure distance. We can measure distance in miles. We can also measure distance in kilometers. In the same way, we can measure temperature in Celsius. We can also measure temperature in Fahrenheit. But because the doctor had said 102 degree, Shahz thought that he's now going to die because he had heard that people die at 44 degrees. So the father, he helps him realize and he says, absolutely, it's not, nothing is going to happen to you. It's like miles and kilometers, like how many kilometers we make when we do 70 in the car. Oh, he said, but his gaze at the foot of his bed relaxed slowly. Now he will relax. Now he relaxed. Now he was comfortable. Shots. The hold over himself relaxed too. Finally. And the next day, it was very slack, and he cried very easily at little things that were of no importance. After waiting for the whole day to die, the next day, when Shad's, when this confusion of thermometer, this confusion of Celsius and Fahrenheit thermometer, when it was solved, the next day, Shad's was much better in condition, and he started crying and fighting and behaving normally, crying very easily at little things which were of no importance. So, students, this was a very simple story, and it shows the innocence of the child who did not know the difference between Celsius and Fahrenheit thermometer. And he was waiting, the poor boy was waiting the whole day to die. That's the end of the short story. I hope you understood and enjoyed the short story. Take care, students. Thank you for your time.